When I first set up this 75-gallon tank, I didn't have an exact vision for what I wanted it to be other than simply achieving the goals that I mentioned earlier. And for the substrate media, I simply started with a mix of gravel and EcoComplete, and I had some beginner aquarium plants like hornwort and frogbit, things like that, plants that feed from the water column, as well as the riparian plants like peace lily and pothos and a few others. Had some guppies and just pond snails. I had a hang on the back filter that poured into a window box planter that housed all of the riparian plants. Now as time went by, I just allowed a lot of the fish waste to accumulate. I mean, I did still gravel vacuum, but not too thoroughly. I was really trying to build up organic matter in the substrate. And then I began building up the substrate by adding another layer of EcoComplete and gravel, and a few months later I added a sand cap and then dirt in the form of frozen dirt cubes. Then I started planting Amazon sword, Italian val, water wisteria, all rooted plants that grow in the substrate. If you want to learn about how I made the frozen dirt cubes, I have a short video that I'll try to put a card up for. Now all of this was added to just what was already there. Like I didn't have to tear down the tank or anything like that, and just built it up over time. And now this has become a heavily planted community tank with tetras and cories, guppies, cherry barbs, autocinklus, zebra danios, and a rainbow shark. And I've redesigned the riparian plant layout a few different times. I kept wanting to try out new ideas, but now I'm trying to just leave it alone. So this tank started as a basic inert substrate. Over time it has developed into a very active, integral part of the aquarium ecosystem and is very closely achieving a lot of my goals. It is definitely low maintenance. I do a partial water change every 3 months, and I do minimal fertilizing. It's been 1 year since I even fertilized the substrate plants, and I'm constantly having to remove excess plants. I do use some liquid ferts. They have been necessary for the riparian plants and the frog bit. I don't do any vacuuming. I've got a really good cleanup crew between the cories, the rainbow shark, and the snails and autocinklus. They're just constantly feeding, sifting through, feeding, and breaking down all the organic matter. And this is becoming a living ecosystem. And it's not a perfect system, of course. I do feed these fish, a few times a week, but there are plants and pond snails. I've seen copepods, biofilm, guppy fry from time to time that are a food source, some algae, but nothing unreasonable, springtails and detritus worms, and the smaller fish, especially the cherry barbs, they're just constantly grazing on the roots of the frog bit and of course down the substrate along the driftwood. And of course this is low tech. There's no CO2 system, and I've got all low tech aquarium plants. There's natural filtration going on. For several months I didn't even use the hob filter at all. All the water parameters were fine, they were consistent during that time. But I started using the hob again because there was so much buildup of mulm, along the substrate, and it was just constantly getting stirred up by the cories and the rainbow shark. So I put the filter back on, and I'm using filter floss just to manage the water clarity. And I only run it 3 or 4 days a week, and I'm always turning it off at night. I do use a heater, of course, during the winter time, and this is close to a window, so if the power goes out for a few days, I can, let the plants get natural light. Otherwise, of course, I am using aquarium lights. And as far as the goal of growing plants in this setup, I'll just say goal achieved.